This script was written a few weeks before the 4.5 update and possibly the next Doors update, but I think it still holds up. I just didn't get any further because I was busy with school and finals coming up. I want to start this off by saying that I'm a huge fan of Bedsheet Ghost, so if he or any of his other fans are watching, please tell me if he's ever played Heroes of the Forest so he can cover peak Roblox. Other than that, I think this video in particular has to be his worst video he's ever made. His points are awful and or unrelated to his thesis, and I think a better video would have been just talking about why he likes pressure, without needing to compare it to Doors anyway. Firstly, I'm just going to skip over the first few minutes, because it's just the overview. We both know what Doors and pressure are. We both have seen the video. My problem started exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
One thing that really stood out about Doors is the sheer amount of action in the game. You see, a good horror game balances pure horror and pure action. Take RE7 and RE Village. 7 was praised for being a truly horrifying experience while dropping a lot of the action, and Village was criticized for not having enough horror and too much action. An even more extreme example is Resident Evil 5 and 6, which are universally memed into oblivion because of the complete lack of horror. Doors does a shockingly good job of balancing action and horror for a Roblox game. The now iconic Seek Chase and the Lock Puzzle are great examples of taking a break from the horror to give the player some excitement. But what if I told you that while Doors does a good job of balancing action and horror, Pressure gets it almost perfectly? Being set in an abandoned underwater facility allows the developers of this game to go absolutely insane with the environmental storytelling. And believe me, they do. This looks like a Valve game. For example, about halfway through the game, you have to reset some generators that have broken to fix the door leading forward. There's only one generator to fix per room, and there's only 2 rooms, and they take like 10 seconds to fix max. But not even 10 rooms later, you find yourself in this situation. What? Whoa. What?
Now I just want to start first by saying I've never played the Resident Evil games, nor do I really know about what the whole action versus horror thing is about. I'm going off of what Ghost tells us here, and I think I've got the gist. On that note, why exactly are the Seek Chases and the figure breaks from the horror? Like, I could see an argument for the Seek Chase, but there is no possible way that Door 50 is just a break from the horror. That sense of dread from finding yourself in the wake of the figure those first few times is just so palpable. The gameplay in that section is a huge jump from the status quo. I just can't see how anyone could brush this off this way. And you know what makes this worse? The dude goes on to say that the Searchlights room does this horror action balance better. Brothers, these rooms are the exact same core concept: dodge a monster while obtaining other things. In Pressure's case it would be fixing generators, and in Doors getting books. And I know the two are slightly different with monsters and how they work, and setting, and everything, but when they function so similarly I have to ask, how on earth is the figure a break from the horror for some action, and the Searchlights isn't? This makes so little sense to me, and honestly it sounds like, no, it straight up has to be a double standard. This is all glaze. This is just praising the new and cool thing for being new and cool, and throwing sticks at the figure for no reason. And I mean no reason. I wouldn't have talked so long about this part if Bedsheet Ghost had included anything other than his reaction from reaching this room for the first time. There's also the pandemonium part of this argument, which I also think is a double standard for the Seek Chase. I'm honestly not sure what he's trying to say with this part, about the action-horror balance thing, but I can already see an argument for pandemonium being mostly focused on action rather than horror. Same with Seek, like I said before. Again, not as sure if Ghost is saying that pandemonium has a better balance. I personally think that it and Seek have a really similar balance, but pandemonium is just more intense and abrupt. Then there's also my next problem with this argument: it's just so damn messy. It jumps from action versus horror to environmental storytelling not before saying this weird line.
Because let's be honest with ourselves, opening Doors for 30 minutes is not exactly breathtaking gameplay. I don't care how many freaky guys you throw at me.
The context makes this sentence sound a lot worse, I think. Then it goes to attention to detail, where his example is that Ifesation has a spawn animation, as if Eyes doesn't have one. After all of this, Bedsheet Ghost actually gets to the points that are actually valid. Pressure has much better world building, though I wish the player wasn't thrown into it with a black screen and a wall of text, but it gets the player instantly immersed into its atmosphere, and Ghost here is right, it's a great hook into the story. This is also the end of the whole Doors versus Pressure thing, since he goes on to gush about the rest of the game, rightfully so. Still, here's a lot more that he could have covered about aspects Pressure does better. The room variation is much better, and it makes runs feel a bit different. The voice acting gives the characters a lot more personality. My favorite examples are Ifestation's lines, because they say a lot about an entity we only encounter for a few seconds at a time. The monsters are cool concepts, and my favorite has to be the searchlights, even though it might have sounded like I was hating before. And I also like the squiddles, cause it's literally the name of those homestuck things. I also think that the game isn't perfect, and there are areas where it is lacking. I already went over this in my previous video, but I think Pressure is very weak when it comes to its gameplay. It just feels like you're walking without much going on, until you reach the halfway boss, which can often be way over halfway. And then the final section. I think this is why the player count dropped so dramatically. I don't mean to hate, and I do genuinely like Pressure. I just really didn't like this video in particular, nor the immediate switch up on Doors when the game was released and got popular. Bedsheet Ghost's video could have easily just been about Pressure, considering a good portion is just him appreciating the game. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Bye. Again, please get Ghost to play Heroes of the Forest if he hasn't already, or at least make a video on it. It deserves more recognition.